In Cedar Grove, ambition is supposed to know its place, and gentle black girls are expected to keep their voices small. On career day, Ms. Whitmore, a veteran white teacher, scoffed openly at 8-year-old Imani Robinson's dream of becoming an astronaut, dismissing her as naive and out of touch. She never imagined that Imani's mother, Dr. Monica Robinson, was a lead NASA engineer who'd spent her life proving people like Ms. Whitmore wrong. What started as a classroom mockery would ignite a battle over who gets to reach for the stars and who decides which dreams are possible in a town built on silence. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen windows, casting warm patches of light across the Robinsons' breakfast table. Imani sat perched on her chair, legs swinging back and forth as she spread strawberry jam on her toast. Her NASA t-shirt was freshly pressed, and her favorite space-themed backpack waited by the door. "Mom, do you think everyone will like my presentation?" Imani asked, carefully arranging her toast into 2 equal triangles. Her dark eyes were bright with excitement, but there was a hint of worry in her voice. Monica looked up from her coffee, taking in her daughter's earnest expression. She wore her own crisp white shirt and navy blazer, her NASA ID badge tucked safely in her briefcase. "Of course they will, sweetheart. You've practiced so hard. But what if—" Imani's voice trailed off as she pushed her breakfast around her plate. "What if they laugh? Like when I wore my astronaut costume to the fall festival?" Monica's jaw tightened slightly at the memory, but she kept her voice steady and warm. "Remember what we always say? We don't let other people's small minds limit our big dreams." Imani nodded, straightening her shoulders. "To the stars and beyond. That's my girl." Monica reached into her pocket and pulled out a small silver rocket, no bigger than her thumb. It caught the morning light, gleaming like a real spacecraft. "I got you something special for today." Imani's eyes widened as she carefully took the tiny rocket. "It's beautiful, Mom. It's your good luck charm. Whenever you feel nervous, just hold on to it and remember, your dreams are as big as the universe itself." After breakfast, they stepped out into the crisp morning air. Their house, though modest, stood proud with its fresh paint and well-tended garden, Monica's attempt to make their new home feel welcoming. As they walked down the sidewalk, Imani clutched her backpack straps, taking in the familiar sights of their neighborhood. Mrs. Peterson, watering her roses, gave them a genuine smile and wave. "Good morning, Robinsons." Her garden gnomes, painted in every color of the rainbow, seemed to wink at them in the morning light. But just 2 houses down, Mr. Thompson deliberately turned his back as they passed, yanking his newspaper from the bushes with unnecessary force. Imani's steps faltered slightly, but Monica placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, keeping them moving forward. They passed the Baker family's house, where Lisa Baker, another 3rd grader, was just coming out the front door. Lisa had been friendly to Imani on her first day, but lately she'd been distant, especially when certain other girls were around. "Hi, Lisa," Imani called out hopefully. Lisa glanced their way, then quickly looked down at her shoes, hurrying in the opposite direction. Monica felt Imani's shoulder slump under her hand. "Some people take time to warm up to new neighbors," Monica said softly, though her heart ached. "Remember, we've only been here 3 months." They continued their walk, passing more houses with their perfectly manicured lawns and American flags. Some had welcome signs or religious decorations, but the Robinsons couldn't help noticing they were still the only black family on their street, or any of the surrounding streets for that matter. As they approached the school, the morning crowd of parents and children grew thicker. Monica knelt down to Imani's level, straightening her daughter's collar. "You've got your presentation ready?" Imani patted her backpack. "Yes, and my visual aids," and my space facts, and most importantly? Monica raised an eyebrow. Imani pulled out the silver rocket from her pocket, holding it up with a grin. My lucky charm! That's right. Monica hugged her daughter tight. You're going to do amazing things, Imani Robinson. Don't let anyone tell you different. The school bell rang, its clear tone cutting through the morning chatter. Other children started streaming toward the entrance, their voices excited about career day. Imani took a deep breath, squeezing the rocket in her pocket one more time. See you after school, Mom. She turned toward the building, her backpack bouncing with each step. Monica watched as her daughter approached Ms. Whitmore's classroom. The teacher stood at the door in a flowered dress, greeting each student with a practiced smile. When Imani reached the doorway, Ms. Whitmore's smile tightened almost imperceptibly, but Monica caught it. She'd seen that look too many times not to recognize it. Imani paused at the threshold, her hand still in her pocket, gripping her rocket. Then, squaring her small shoulders just like her mother had taught her, she stepped into the classroom, ready to share her dreams with the world. Monica lingered a moment longer, watching through the window as Imani found her seat. Her daughter's face was a mixture of nervousness and hope, an expression Monica knew all too well from her own journey through spaces where she'd had to prove herself, again and again. Ms. Whitmore closed the classroom door with a gentle click and turned to face her students, her flowered dress swishing as she moved to the front of the room. Her smile was wide and practiced, the kind that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Good morning, class," she sang out, clasping her hands together. "Today is a very special day. Who can tell me what we're celebrating?" "Career Day," the children chorused, their voices filled with excitement. "That's right," Ms. Whitmore nodded approvingly. "Today, each of you will share your dreams for the future, what you want to be when you grow up." She walked between the rows of desks, her heels clicking against the linoleum floor. "Remember, it's important to have realistic goals that match our abilities." Her gaze lingered for a moment on Imani, who sat clutching the silver rocket in her pocket, heart pounding with anticipation. "Let's start with—" Ms. Whitmore's finger moved across the room. "Tommy, what would you like to be when you grow up?" Tommy Martinez stood up confidently. "I want to be a firefighter like my dad," he announced. "I already know how to work the hose and everything." "How wonderful!" Ms. Whitmore beamed. "Such a noble profession. And it runs in the family. That makes perfect sense." She wrote firefighter on the whiteboard in neat letters. "Who's next?" Sarah Peterson raised her hand eagerly. "I want to be a teacher, just like you, Ms. Whitmore." "Oh, how sweet." Ms. Whitmore pressed a hand to her heart. "You'd make an excellent teacher, Sarah. You're so good with the younger children at recess." One by one, children stood to share their dreams. Lisa Baker wanted to be a nurse, just like her mother. Jason Thompson was going to take over his father's hardware store. Each time, Ms. Whitmore nodded approvingly, writing their choices on the board and making encouraging comments about how well-suited they were to their chosen professions. Imani's hand had been raised since the beginning, but Ms. Whitmore's eyes kept sliding past her as if she wasn't there. The silver rocket felt warm in her pocket as she waited, trying to keep her arm from trembling as it stayed raised in the air. Finally, after what felt like hours, Ms. Whitmore could no longer ignore her. "Yes, Imani," she said, her voice cooling several degrees. "What would you like to be?" Imani stood up, her NASA shirt suddenly feeling very conspicuous. She took a deep breath, remembering her mother's words. "I want to be an astronaut," she said clearly, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet classroom. Ms. Whitmore's eyebrows shot up. "An astronaut?" she repeated, as if she hadn't heard correctly. Gaining confidence, Imani continued, "Yes, I want to explore space and conduct experiments on the International Space Station. Did you know that right now, There are astronauts up there doing research that could help us." A small snicker from the back of the room cut through her words. Ms. Whitmore didn't shush it like she had when other students were speaking. "Well," Ms. Whitmore said, her lips curving into what looked more like a smirk than a smile. "That's certainly ambitious." She drew out the last word, making it sound like something dirty. Imani gripped her rocket tighter, pressing on. "I've been studying all about space. I know about the Artemis program, and how they're planning missions to the Moon and Mars, and—" "Oh, honey," Ms. Whitmore interrupted, letting out a short laugh that made Imani's stomach twist. "Maybe you should aim a little lower. People like us don't get to space." The words hung in the air like poison. Imani stood frozen, her mind struggling to process what she'd just heard. "People like us? You know what I mean." Ms. Whitmore waved her hand dismissively. "It's important to have realistic goals. Why don't you think about something more suitable, like a teacher's aide, or maybe working in food service?" More laughs rippled through the classroom. Tommy Martinez pointed at Imani's NASA shirt and whispered something to Jason Thompson, who snorted loudly. Lisa Baker, who used to share her crayons with Imani, stared down at her desk, saying nothing. "But Imani's voice grew smaller. "I've been studying really hard. Let's be practical." Ms. Whitmore's voice took on a falsely sweet tone. "Space is very complicated, very technical. You wouldn't want to set yourself up for disappointment, would you?" The laughter grew louder. Someone in the back of the room made a whooshing sound, followed by an exaggerated crash. "Houston, we have a problem," another voice called out, triggering more giggles. Imani's legs felt weak. The rocket in her pocket, which had felt so magical this morning, now seemed to burn against her skin. She looked around the room, hoping to find one friendly face, one person who wasn't laughing or looking away. But all she saw were smirks and averted eyes. Now, class," Ms. Whitmore said, not making any real effort to quiet the laughter. "Let's be kind. Imani is still new here. She just needs to learn what's appropriate." Imani sank back into her seat, her vision blurring with unshed tears. She could feel the eyes of her classmates on her, hear their continuing whispers and poorly suppressed giggles. The space between her desk and Ms. Whitmore's triumphant smile seemed to stretch out like an endless void, darker and colder than any corner of space she'd ever dreamed of exploring. The final bell rang, cutting through Imani's fog of misery. She hadn't heard a single word of the afternoon lessons, too focused on the burning shame that still colored her cheeks. While her classmates rushed to pack up their bags, chattering and laughing, Imani moved slowly, carefully placing each book and pencil into her backpack as if they might shatter. Ms. Whitmore stood by the door, bidding cheerful goodbyes to students as they left. When Imani approached, the teacher's smile tightened. "Remember what we talked about, dear," she said softly, so only Imani could hear. "It's important to know your place." The hallway seemed longer than usual, stretching endlessly before her. Imani kept her eyes fixed on the floor, counting tiles to distract herself from the whispers and pointing fingers. The NASA shirt she'd been so proud of this morning now felt like a target on her back. At her locker, she quickly grabbed her jacket, trying to cover the shirt. A group of girls walked past, led by Lisa Baker, who used to sit with her at lunch. "Watch out!" Lisa called out, louder than necessary. "Future astronaut coming through!" The girls erupted in giggles, their laughter echoing off the metal lockers. Imani's hands trembled as she zipped up her jacket. The toy rocket was still in her pocket, but she couldn't bear to touch it now. Each step toward the bus felt heavy, like walking through deep water. The bus driver, Mr. Johnson, gave her his usual friendly nod as she climbed aboard. But today, instead of sitting in her regular seat near the front, Imani moved toward the back, hoping to disappear among the older kids who usually ignored the younger ones. It didn't work. Tommy Martinez and Jason Thompson were already there, making exaggerated countdown noises. "T-minus 10 seconds to failure," Tommy announced as she passed. 9, 8, 7. "Ground control to Major Loser," Jason added, sending them both into fits of laughter. Imani slid into an empty seat, pressing herself against the window. Outside, the familiar streets of their small town rolled by. The hardware store where Jason's dad worked, the fire station where Tommy's father was chief, the diner where Sarah's mom waited tables, places where everyone seemed to know exactly where they belonged. The bus ride felt endless. Every bump in the road, every stop to let off another student seemed to stretch time like taffy. Some kids had already forgotten about her, too busy with their phones or homework, but others kept glancing back, whispering and snickering. Each laugh felt like a needle pricking her skin. When the bus finally reached her stop, Imani practically ran down the aisle, nearly tripping on the steps in her hurry to escape. She heard someone call out, "Houston, we have a problem," followed by more laughter as the doors closed behind her. The walk home was a blur. Her mother wouldn't be back from work for another hour. She always worked late on Mondays. Imani let herself in with her house key, dropping her backpack by the door and heading straight to her room. The space posters on her walls seemed to mock her now. The gleaming shuttles, the mysterious nebulae, the astronauts floating in their white suits. They all felt like they belonged to a different world, one she'd been foolish to think she could ever be part of. She changed out of her NASA shirt, stuffing it deep in her dresser drawer. The toy rocket followed, buried under a pile of socks where she wouldn't have to look at it. When Monica came home, Imani heard her moving around the kitchen, starting dinner. The familiar sounds of pots clanking and water running usually brought comfort, but today they just reminded her that she'd have to face her mother soon. "Imani?" Monica's voice carried up the stairs. "Dinner's ready, honey." Imani forced herself to go downstairs, sliding into her usual seat at the kitchen table. Monica had made her favorite, mac and cheese with extra cheese, just the way she liked it. But the food felt tasteless in her mouth. "So," Monica said, her voice warm and interested, "how was career day? Did you tell everyone about wanting to be an astronaut?" Imani pushed the macaroni around her plate, trying to keep her voice steady. "It was fine," she mumbled. Monica paused, her fork halfway to her mouth. She set it down slowly, studying her daughter's face. "Imani," she said gently, "what happened?" "Nothing," Imani said quickly. Too quickly. She could feel the tears starting to build behind her eyes. "Baby?" Monica reached across the table, covering Imani's small hand with her own. "You can tell me anything. You know that, right?" That gentle touch, the concern in her mother's voice. It was too much. The dam broke, and suddenly Imani was sobbing, the words pouring out between gasps. "Miss Whitmore! She laughed at me. She said, people like us don't get to go to space." Monica's hand tightened slightly on hers, but she remained quiet, letting Imani continue. "And then everyone was laughing, and Tommy and Jason made crash noises, and Lisa won't even look at me anymore, and—" Imani's voice cracked. "And Ms. Whitmore said I should pick something more suitable, like being a teacher's aide or working in food service, and she made it sound like I was stupid for even thinking about space." The tears were flowing freely now, dropping onto her untouched dinner. They all laughed, Mama. The whole class. And on the bus, they kept calling me names and making jokes, and she couldn't continue, her body shaking with sobs. Monica moved quickly around the table, pulling Imani into her arms. Her daughter's small body shook with sobs, and Monica held her tight, rocking gently as she had when Imani was smaller. Baby, listen to me, Monica said softly, running her hand over Imani's hair. There is nothing wrong with your dreams. Ms. Whitmore was wrong to say those things. She was wrong to laugh, and those kids were wrong to laugh too. Imani hiccuped, her face pressed against her mother's shoulder. But maybe she's right. Maybe I should pick something else. No. Monica's voice was firm but gentle. She pulled back slightly, tilting Imani's chin up so their eyes met. Do you know how many people told Katherine Johnson she couldn't be a mathematician? How many folks told Mae Jemison she'd never be an astronaut? But they didn't listen to those voices. They listened to their hearts instead. Imani sniffled. Who are they? Come with me. Monica led Imani to the living room where she kept her work laptop. She pulled up pictures of black women in spacesuits, standing proud in NASA control rooms, calculating complex equations. As they scrolled through the images, Monica told their stories of persistence, of excellence, of dreams that wouldn't be denied. These women didn't let anyone tell them what they couldn't do, Monica explained. And neither will you, because you're strong, you're smart, and most importantly, you're not alone in this fight. After sharing a warm cup of hot chocolate with extra marshmallows, their special comfort drink, Monica tucked Imani into bed. The girl's eyes were still red from crying, but the desperate sadness had eased somewhat. Mama? Imani's voice was small in the darkness. Will you tell me a space story? Monica smiled, settling onto the edge of the bed. She began telling Imani about the Artemis missions, about the plans to return to the moon, about the future Mars expeditions. She watched as her daughter's eyes grew heavy, imagination carrying her far beyond the cruel words of the day. Remember, baby, Monica whispered as Imani drifted off, the stars belong to everyone, and you shine just as bright as any of them. Once Imani was asleep, Monica returned to the kitchen. Her untouched dinner had gone cold, but food was the last thing on her mind. She opened her laptop again, this time with a different purpose. The school's website yielded little useful information about Ms. Whitmore, but social media proved more revealing. The teacher's public posts showed a pattern of subtle bias, sharing articles questioning affirmative action, liking comments about maintaining traditional values in education. Monica dug deeper, finding local news archives. The school district's diversity statistics were troubling. Only 2 black teachers in the entire elementary school, no administrators of color, and a history of complaints about unequal treatment that had been quietly dismissed or ignored. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she drafted an email to Principal McHenry. The words were carefully chosen, professional but firm, requesting an immediate meeting to discuss Mrs. Whitmore's inappropriate and potentially discriminatory behavior. She documented everything Imani had told her, noting specific quotes and actions. Years of engineering work had taught her the importance of detailed documentation. This wouldn't be brushed aside as just another misunderstanding. The clock ticked past midnight as Monica finished her research and preparation. She created a folder on her computer, saving screenshots, statistics, and relevant policies about discrimination in education. Tomorrow, she would be armed with facts, not just anger. Before heading to bed, Monica checked on Imani one more time. Her daughter had kicked off her covers in her sleep, one arm stretched toward the glow-in-the-dark stars on her ceiling. Monica gently tucked the blanket back around her, heart aching with fierce love and determination. The next morning came too quickly. Monica woke early, preparing Imani's favorite breakfast, French toast with strawberries arranged in the shape of a star. But when Imani came downstairs, she moved like a shadow of her usual self, picking at her food without enthusiasm. I don't feel good, Imani mumbled, pushing her plate away. Can I stay home today? Monica sat down beside her, smoothing Imani's hair. I know it's hard, baby, but we don't run from problems in this family. We face them head on. Like the astronauts? Imani asked quietly. Exactly like the astronauts. They face scary things all the time, but they do it anyway. And you know what? You're going to be just fine, because I'm meeting with Principal McHenry first thing this morning. Imani's eyes widened slightly. You are? Yes, I am. Monica's voice was steady, reassuring. What happened yesterday wasn't right, and we're going to make sure it doesn't happen again. Not to you, not to anyone. They sat together at the kitchen table, the morning sun streaming through the windows, casting long shadows across their plates. Monica watched her daughter carefully cut her French toast into small pieces, each movement deliberate and subdued. The usual morning chatter was absent, replaced by a heavy silence that spoke volumes about the weight still pressing on Imani's young shoulders. Monica and Imani walked hand in hand through the school's front doors. The morning bustle of children and parents filled the hallways, but to Monica, it felt like walking into a storm. She squeezed Imani's hand, drawing strength from her daughter's trust. The main office was quiet compared to the hallway chaos. The secretary looked up, her practiced smile faltering slightly at their serious expressions. We have a meeting with Principal McHenry, Monica said firmly. Dr. Robinson and Imani Robinson. They were led to a small waiting area outside the principal's office. Monica noticed Imani's leg bouncing nervously and placed a steadying hand on her knee. Remember what we talked about? You're not in trouble. We're here to make things right. Principal McHenry's door opened, and the older woman emerged, perfectly coiffed in a navy suit. Dr. Robinson, Imani, please come in. Her tone was professional but cautious. Ms. Whitmore was already seated inside, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She barely met their eyes as they entered, her usual confidence notably diminished. Thank you for meeting with us, Monica began, her voice calm and measured as she took a seat. Imani sat close beside her, shoulders tense. I'm here because of an incident that occurred during yesterday's Career Day presentation. Principal McHenry nodded, pen poised over a notepad. Yes, please tell us your concerns. Monica recounted the events precisely, her engineering training evident in her methodical approach. When my daughter shared her dream of becoming an astronaut, Ms. Whitmore responded by laughing at her. She suggested, and I quote, that people like us don't get to space. This was followed by classroom laughter that Ms. Whitmore did nothing to discourage. Ms. Whitmore shifted uncomfortably. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I was simply trying to be realistic. Realistic? Monica's voice remained level, but her eyes blazed. Please explain what's unrealistic about my daughter pursuing a career in space exploration. Well, Ms. Whitmore faltered, glancing at Principal McHenry for support. The principal cleared her throat. Perhaps we should focus on moving forward constructively. Ms. Whitmore, do you acknowledge that your comments might have been inappropriate? I suppose I could have chosen my words more carefully, Ms. Whitmore conceded reluctantly. More carefully? Monica leaned forward slightly. My daughter came home in tears. Her confidence was shattered. This goes beyond poor word choice. Imani sat quietly, watching the adults with wide eyes. Monica felt her daughter's hand slip into hers under the table. What would you like to see happen here? Principal McHenry asked, her pen still hovering over the notepad. First, I want a formal apology to Imani, in front of the same classmates who witnessed yesterday's humiliation. Monica's tone left no room for negotiation. Second, I want assurance that this kind of behavior won't be tolerated in the future. For any student. Ms. Whitmore's face flushed. I really don't think. I agree, Principal McHenry cut in quickly. A public apology would be appropriate. Ms. Whitmore can deliver it during morning class today. Monica noticed how the principal avoided addressing the broader issue of discrimination, but chose to focus on the immediate victory. "Thank you. Imani, are you okay with that?" Imani nodded, though her grip on Monica's hand tightened. "Very well." Principal McHenry stood, signaling the meeting's end. "Ms. Whitmore will make her apology during first period. Imani can head to class now." Monica hugged Imani tightly before letting her go. "Remember what we talked about. Head high, baby girl." After Imani left, Monica gathered her belongings slowly, making eye contact with both women. "I trust this will be handled appropriately. I'll be staying nearby this morning to ensure everything goes smoothly." In the parking lot, Monica sat in her car, unable to leave. She watched the school clock through her windshield, imagining Imani in her classroom, waiting for the apology. Her phone lay in her lap, email draft open to NASA colleagues, explaining why she might be late to her morning video conference. The minutes crawled by. Monica thought about revealing her NASA position, how it might have changed the dynamic of the meeting. But no, this wasn't about her credentials. This was about a child's right to dream without limitation, about confronting bias in its most insidious form. She checked her watch again. First period would be starting now. Somewhere in that building, her daughter was sitting at her desk, probably trying to make herself as small as possible. Monica's hands clenched the steering wheel, fighting the urge to rush in and protect her child. Inside the classroom, Ms. Whitmore stood before her students, her expression tight. The children fell silent, sensing the unusual tension in the air. Imani sat straight in her chair, chin lifted slightly, just as her mother had taught her. "Class," Ms. Whitmore began, her voice stiff, "I need to address something from yesterday. During our career day presentations, I made some inappropriate comments about Imani's career choice. I apologize for laughing and suggesting that certain careers might not be appropriate for certain people. Everyone should feel free to pursue their dreams." The words were correct, but they fell flat, lacking warmth or genuine remorse. Still, Imani felt a small surge of pride. Her mother had stood up for her, had made this happen. For just a moment, despite the teacher's obvious reluctance, Imani felt like she'd won something important. The final bell rang, and students poured into the hallways like water breaking through a dam. Imani took her time packing her backpack, carefully placing each book and pencil in its proper place. The day had been strange. Some kids avoided looking at her entirely, while others whispered and pointed when they thought she wasn't watching. Outside, Monica stood waiting by the school's front steps, her professional attire drawing curious glances from passing parents. When Imani emerged, Monica's face brightened with a warm smile that masked her underlying concern. "There's my girl," Monica said, holding out her hand. "How was the rest of your day?" Imani shrugged, taking her mother's hand. "Okay, I guess." Jenny shared her cookies with me at lunch. As they started walking, Monica noticed Imani's shoulders were still tense, her usual bounce missing from her step. They passed other families heading to their cars, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the school grounds. "Want to take the long way home?" Monica suggested, knowing the walking path behind the school would give them more privacy to talk. Imani nodded, and they turned onto the tree-lined path that wound past the teacher's parking lot. The shade felt cooler here, and fewer people used this route. They were passing behind the school building when voices drifted through an open window. Monica recognized Ms. Whitmore's distinctive tone immediately, and instinctively slowed their pace. "Can you believe the nerve?" Ms. A. Whitmore was saying, her voice carrying clearly in the quiet afternoon air. "Coming in here, demanding apologies like I'm some kind of racist." "Well, you did handle it gracefully," another female voice responded. "But these people, they're always looking for something to be offended about." "Exactly. And did you see how she acted in the meeting? One of those angry black women, thinking they can just bulldoze their way through everything. Monica's grip on Imani's hand tightened involuntarily. Her daughter looked up, questioning, but Monica quickly plastered on a smile and picked up their pace. "Let's race to that big oak tree," Monica suggested, desperate to get Imani out of earshot. "Ready, set, go." Imani took off running, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. Monica followed, her heels clicking against the pavement, grateful that her daughter hadn't heard the poison being spewed about them. The walk home took longer than usual. Monica made sure to keep the conversation light, asking about Imani's science project and the book she was reading in class. But inside, her blood was boiling, the words "angry black women" echoing in her mind like a taunting chorus. When they reached their house, Monica sent Imani upstairs to start her homework, while she prepared dinner. Her hands shook slightly as she chopped vegetables, replaying the overheard conversation again and again. Marcus arrived home just after 6, his tie loosened and briefcase heavy with insurance claims to review. He noticed Monica's tension immediately as he entered the kitchen. "Rough day?" he asked, coming up behind her to kiss her cheek. Monica waited until she heard Imani's footsteps retreat back upstairs before turning to face her husband. You could say that. They moved to the living room, where Monica recounted everything: the morning meeting, the stiff apology, and finally, the conversation she'd overheard. Marcus listened intently, his insurance adjuster's mind already analyzing the situation from multiple angles. "So now what?" he asked when she finished. "We could file a formal complaint with the school board." Monica sank deeper into the couch. "It's not just about the complaint, Marcus. You should have seen how they looked at me in that office, like I was confirming every stereotype they already believed about us." "About them, not us," Marcus corrected gently. "Their prejudice isn't our problem to fix." "But it is Imani's problem to live with," Monica countered. "And not just her. What about the other black children who'll come through that school? Or any child who's different from what Ms. Whitmore thinks is realistic for them to become?" Marcus nodded slowly, recognizing the fire in his wife's eyes. The same determination that had carried her through engineering school and up the ranks at NASA. "You're right," he said. "This isn't just about today, or just about Imani. But whatever you decide to do next, you need to be strategic. These people, they're already painting you as the angry black woman. You'll need to be 10 steps ahead." Monica leaned against his shoulder, drawing comfort from his steady presence. "I know, and I will be. But I can't let this stand, Marcus. Not when our daughter's future, all these children's futures, are at stake." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the sound of Imani's footsteps overhead reminding them of exactly what they were fighting for. "Well," Marcus finally said, "whatever you decide, I'm with you. We'll handle this together, like we always do." Monica squeezed his hand, grateful for his support, but already formulating plans in her mind. The question wasn't whether to act, but how to make the impact last beyond just one apology or one incident. The school needed more than a Band-Aid. It needed real change. The fluorescent lights of Wilson's grocery store buzzed overhead as Monica pushed her cart down the cereal aisle. She reached for Imani's favorite brand, trying to ignore the whispers and stares that followed her like shadows. 2 women she recognized from school pickup quickly turned their backs when she passed. Their hushed voices carried just loud enough for her to hear. "That's the one who made such a fuss." Monica straightened her spine and continued shopping, checking items off her list with deliberate focus. At the produce section, Mrs. Thompson, who usually chatted about her garden, suddenly became fascinated with selecting tomatoes when Monica approached. The checkout line proved even worse. The usual friendly cashier barely made eye contact, and an elderly white woman actually switched lanes to avoid standing behind her. Monica's hands trembled slightly as she loaded her groceries onto the belt, but she kept her face neutral, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her rattled. Outside the school, the morning drop-off scene had transformed. Clusters of PTA mothers huddled together, their conversation dying whenever Monica's car approached. Karen Whitmore, the PTA president, held court near the main entrance, her perfectly styled blonde hair catching the morning sun as she gestured animatedly to her audience. "It's just so sad when people try to cause trouble in our lovely community," Karen's voice carried across the parking lot. "We've never had these kinds of problems before." Monica gripped the steering wheel tighter, watching Imani walk toward the building. Other children subtly moved away as she passed, like particles being repelled by a magnet. The sight made Monica's chest ache. Back home, Monica sat at her kitchen table, laptop open before her. She'd been drafting and redrafting an email to the district superintendent for over an hour, carefully weighing each word. The morning's events had only strengthened her resolve. "Dear Dr. Williams," she typed, "I am writing to formally request an investigation into recent incidents at Cedar Grove Elementary that point to a pattern of discriminatory behavior." She detailed the career day incident, the overheard conversation, and the subsequent social ostracization, maintaining a professional tone throughout. Her finger hovered over the send button for several seconds before she finally clicked it. The school day seemed endless. Monica tried to focus on work calls, but her mind kept drifting to Imani. When 3 o'clock finally arrived, she waited in the car line, watching the rear-view mirror anxiously. Imani emerged from the building alone, her usual group of friends nowhere in sight. She climbed into the back seat, her face drawn and tired. "How was your day, sweetheart?" Monica asked, already dreading the answer. "Fine," Imani mumbled, staring out the window. "Did you present your science project?" "Yeah." Imani's voice cracked slightly. "But Tommy and Lisa kept calling me astronaut girl and making whooshing noises." Ms. Whitmore pretended not to hear. Monica's hands clenched on the steering wheel. "Did you tell another teacher?" "What's the point?" Imani slumped lower in her seat. "They all look at me funny now, anyway." The drive home was quiet, broken only by the soft sound of Imani sniffling in the back seat. Monica watched her in the mirror, remembering her own childhood experiences with prejudice, wishing she could shield her daughter from this pain. That evening, Monica prepared Imani's favorite dinner, mac and cheese with extra breadcrumbs on top. They sat at the kitchen table, the empty chair where Marcus usually sat, a reminder that he was working late again. Imani pushed her food around her plate, unusually subdued. Finally, she looked up at Monica, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Mom?" she asked, her voice small. "Can people like us really go to space?" The question hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Monica set down her fork, choosing her words carefully. "Baby, let me tell you something," she said, reaching across the table to take Imani's hand. "Not only can people like us go to space, but people like us already have. And more of us will." "But Ms. Whitmore said—" "Ms. Whitmore is wrong," Monica interrupted firmly. "And I'm going to prove it to you." "How?" Monica smiled, squeezing her daughter's hand. "You'll see. Trust me. There's a lot more to this story than Ms. Whitmore knows." Imani tilted her head, curiosity temporarily overwhelming her sadness. "What do you mean?" "Let's just say," Monica replied, "that I know a thing or two about space. And soon, everyone else will know too." Saturday morning arrived with golden sunlight streaming through the windows of the Robinson home. Monica had been up since dawn, pacing in her kitchen, rehearsing the words she would share with her daughter. She'd kept her NASA work private in this small town for good reason, but watching Imani's spirit dim over the past few days had become unbearable. "Sweetie," Monica called up the stairs, "want to see something special?" Imani appeared at the top of the stairs in her favorite space-themed pajamas, her hair still wrapped in its protective bonnet. "What is it, Mom?" "Let's get you dressed first. I have a surprise." 20 minutes later, they stood outside a closed door at the end of the hallway. Monica's home office had always been off-limits to Imani, a rule that had sparked countless questions from her curious daughter. "Close your eyes," Monica instructed, placing her hands on Imani's shoulders. The little girl squeezed her eyes shut, bouncing slightly with anticipation. The door creaked open. Monica guided Imani inside, positioning her in the center of the room. "Okay, open them." Imani's eyes flew open, and her mouth formed a perfect O of surprise. The morning sun illuminated a room that looked like it belonged in a space museum. One wall displayed framed certificates and awards. Another held a large whiteboard covered in complex diagrams. But what caught Imani's attention was the collection of NASA memorabilia everywhere. Mission patches, signed photographs of spacecraft, technical manuals, and a genuine space suit glove in a clear display case. "Mom?" Imani whispered, turning in slow circles. "What is all this?" Monica sat in her desk chair, patting her lap. Imani climbed up, still staring at everything with wide eyes. "Remember when you asked if people like us can go to space?" Monica began. "Well, baby girl, I've been helping people get to space for the last 15 years. She reached for a folder on her desk, opening it to reveal official NASA documentation, with her name and title. Dr. Monica Robinson, Senior Engineering Lead, Artemis Program. "You work for NASA?" Imani's voice cracked with emotion. "Like the real NASA?" Monica hugged her daughter close. "The very real NASA. I'm one of the engineers in charge of getting people back to the moon. And this time, we're making sure women and people of color are part of that journey." Tears welled up in Imani's eyes. "But Ms. Whitmore said—" "Ms. Whitmore was wrong," Monica said firmly. "Dead wrong. And I'm going to tell you something important. There have been many black astronauts who've already been to space. Want to meet some of them?" Monica pulled up her laptop, showing Imani photographs of Mae Jemison, the first black woman in space, and Bernard Harris, the first black person to perform a spacewalk. With each story, Imani leaned in closer, drinking in every detail. "They all faced people like Ms. Whitmore," Monica explained. "People who tried to tell them what they couldn't do, but they proved them wrong. Just like you will." Imani touched the screen where Mae Jemison smiled back at her. "Did you ever want to be an astronaut, Mom?" "I did. But I discovered I loved solving the puzzles that get astronauts to space even more. Every day, I work with teams to figure out how to keep them safe up there." Monica pulled out a drawer, revealing a collection of technical drawings. "These are some of my designs for the new lunar lander." Imani traced the lines with her finger, fascination evident in her expression. Could I tell people about this?" "Actually," Monica smiled, "I have an idea. How would you like to do a special project about black pioneers in space? We could research together, make presentations, maybe even build some models." Imani's face lit up. "Really? You'd help me?" "Every step of the way." Monica reached into another drawer and pulled out fresh paper, colored pencils, and a book about space exploration. "Want to start now?" For the next hour, they worked side by side. Imani drew spectacular spaceships, while Monica helped her list important names and dates. They created a timeline of black achievement in space exploration, from the hidden figures like Katherine Johnson to modern-day astronauts. "Mom?" Imani asked, carefully coloring in a picture of a spacewalk. "Why didn't you tell anyone here about NASA?" Monica paused, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes, baby, in places like this, it's easier to keep certain things private. But I was wrong. Your dreams matter more than my comfort. And it's time people here learned that space belongs to everyone." Imani nodded, returning to her drawing with renewed purpose. She added extra stars around her astronaut figure, making them shine brighter than ever. Monica watched her daughter work, seeing the spark return to her eyes. The same spark that had driven Monica through years of being the only black woman in her engineering classes, through countless doubters and closed doors. Together, they filled pages with facts and figures, drawings and dreams. The morning sun climbed higher, casting warm light across their workspace, illuminating mother and daughter as they charted a course through history and hope. Monday morning brought a different energy to Ms. Whitmore's classroom. Imani clutched her carefully prepared presentation folder, decorated with stars and pictures of Mae Jemison. Her weekend research with her mother had filled her with new confidence, even as her stomach twisted with nerves. She approached Ms. Whitmore's desk during morning break while other students chatted and snacked. "Ms. Whitmore, may I ask you something?" The teacher looked up from her papers, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Yes, Imani? Since Black History Month is coming up, I'd like to do a project about black astronauts and scientists at NASA. I could make posters and maybe do presentations for other classes." Imani opened her folder, showing the carefully drawn timeline she and her mother had created. Ms. Whitmore's lips tightened slightly. She glanced around the classroom, then back at Imani. "Well, I suppose that would be acceptable, but keep it simple. We wouldn't want to disrupt the regular curriculum too much." "Thank you," Imani beamed, missing the reluctance in her teacher's tone. She hurried back to her desk and started working on her first poster. Throughout the morning, several classmates peered over her shoulder as she drew. Tommy Martinez seemed particularly interested in her sketch of the lunar lander. "Did black people really help build spaceships?" he whispered. "Yes," Imani explained enthusiastically. "Katherine Johnson calculated the paths for the first astronauts to the moon. And now there are lots of black engineers and astronauts at NASA." Ms. Whitmore's voice cut through their conversation. "Children, this is math time, not discussion time." But interest had already sparked. During lunch, 3 more students asked Imani about her project. Sarah Chen even offered to help make posters. For the first time since career day, Imani felt truly excited at school. That evening, the monthly PTA meeting convened in the school library. Monica hadn't planned to attend, but a concerned parent had texted her about discussions regarding classroom activities. She slipped into a back row just as Mrs. Tinsley, a prominent PTA member, stood up to speak. "I have concerns about a certain project being promoted in Ms. Whitmore's class," she announced, shooting a pointed look at Monica. "While we appreciate enthusiasm, we need to verify the sources of information being presented to our children. For instance, there are claims being made about supposed NASA connections that seem questionable at best." Murmurs rippled through the room. Monica felt eyes turning toward her, some curious, others hostile. "Furthermore, Mrs. Tinsley continued, this project could make other students feel excluded. Perhaps it would be better to focus on more traditional historical figures." Monica gripped her purse tightly, containing her NASA ID and credentials. She could end this right now with proof, but years of experience had taught her timing was everything. The whispers grew louder. A group of mothers near Mrs. Tinsley nodded in agreement. "We should probably cancel it before it gets out of hand," one suggested loudly. "My Tommy came home talking about space engineering," another mother complained. "Now he's questioning his plans to take over his father's hardware store." The principal cleared his throat uncomfortably. "We'll take these concerns under advisement. Perhaps we should form a committee to review the project's content." Monica watched as the meeting dissolved into smaller groups, catching fragments of conversations, getting above themselves, causing trouble. Not the right fit for our community. She drove home slowly, her mind racing with strategies to protect Imani, while fighting this battle. As she pulled into their driveway, something white caught her eye in the mailbox. The envelope had no return address. Inside, she found a single sheet of paper with letters cut from magazines, arranged in uneven rows. "Stop causing trouble in our school. Your NASA stories aren't fooling anyone. Remember your place and keep your daughter in line, or things might get uncomfortable for your family here. Some communities aren't ready for change." Monica's hands shook as she read the words again. The paper crinkled in her grip as memories flooded back. Similar threats during college. During her early NASA days, every time she'd dared to succeed in spaces, others thought she didn't belong. Through the front window, she could see Imani at the dining room table, surrounded by her project materials, drawing with fierce concentration. Her daughter's dedication strengthened her resolve. The letter trembled in her hands, but her voice was steady as she whispered to herself, "Not this time. Not my daughter." She carefully placed the letter in a plastic bag, documenting another piece of evidence in a battle she'd hoped Imani wouldn't have to fight so young. But here they were, and Monica knew this was just the beginning. The next morning, Monica strode into the school's main office, her NASA badge gleaming against her navy blazer. She carried a thick folder of documentation and her tablet, ready for the emergency PTA meeting called to discuss Imani's project. "Dr. Robinson," the secretary greeted her, noticeably warmer than usual. "They're waiting in the conference room." Monica entered to find Principal McHenry, Mrs. Tinsley, and 5 other PTA board members seated around a long table. Ms. Whitmore sat near the end, arms crossed. "Thank you for coming, Mrs. Robinson," Principal McHenry began. "That's Dr. Robinson," Monica corrected firmly, placing her materials on the table. "And I believe we need to address some misconceptions about my credentials and my daughter's project." Mrs. Tinsley shifted in her seat. "We're simply concerned about accuracy and appropriateness." "I understand," Monica interrupted, her voice calm but authoritative. She opened her folder and began laying out documents. "Here's my NASA ID badge, my engineering degrees, letters from the director of the Artemis program confirming my role as senior systems engineer." She turned on her tablet, pulling up the NASA website. "And here's my official biography on nasa.gov, complete with my current projects and publications." The room fell silent as the evidence mounted. Principal McHenry leaned forward, adjusting his glasses to examine the credentials. "Well," he said finally, "these certainly appear to be in order." "They're more than in order," Monica continued. "They represent years of dedication and expertise that I'm willing to share with this school. In fact, I'd like to propose something that could benefit all our students." She pulled up another email on her tablet. "I have connections with several NASA astronauts who regularly participate in educational outreach. With your permission, I'd like to arrange a special assembly featuring a real astronaut who could inspire all our children to reach for the stars." Mrs. Tinsley's face tightened. "That seems rather excessive for a simple class project." "Is it excessive to show our children what's possible?" Monica challenged. "To let them meet someone who's actually been to space? To inspire them to pursue careers in science and engineering?" A younger PTA member, Mrs. Chen, spoke up. "My daughter Sarah hasn't stopped talking about space since she started helping with Imani's project. She's actually doing extra math homework now because she learned astronauts need to be good at calculations." Other board members exchanged glances. Monica noticed Ms. Whitmore's expression darkening. "The logistics would be complicated," Principal McHenry hedged. "Security, scheduling—" "I'll handle all arrangements," Monica assured him. "NASA has standard protocols for school visits. All you need to do is approve it." The room buzzed with whispered conversations. Monica waited, maintaining her professional composure despite her racing heart. Finally, Principal McHenry cleared his throat. "Perhaps we could put it to a vote?" The tension was palpable as hands raised. Monica counted silently. 4 in favor, including Mrs. Chen, 3 against, with Mrs. Tinsley and Ms. Whitmore among the opposition. "Motion carries," Principal McHenry announced reluctantly. "Dr. Robinson, please coordinate with my office regarding the details." As the meeting dispersed, Monica noticed the divisions forming. Mrs. Chen and 2 other teachers stopped to express their support, while Mrs. Tinsley huddled with Ms. Whitmore and their allies, shooting disapproving glances her way. In the hallway, a young science teacher caught up with her. "Dr. Robinson, I just wanted to say, what you're doing is important. Some of us see that." "Thank you," Monica replied, touched by the unexpected support. Back in her home office that evening, Monica composed an email to her old friend and colleague, Dr. Regina James. "Dear Regina, I hope this finds you well. I'm writing both as a colleague and a mother. My daughter Imani's school project about Black pioneers in space has sparked quite a situation here. We could really use your help. Would you consider speaking at a special assembly? These children need to see someone like you, someone who's actually touched the stars. Imani needs it, and honestly, so do some of the adults in this community. I know it's asking a lot, but your presence could make a real difference here. Best regards, Monica." She hit send and sat back, remembering how Regina had mentored her during her early days at NASA. 10 minutes later, her phone chimed with a response. "Monica, say no more. I'll clear my schedule. Send me the details, and I'll be there. It's about time we showed these kids that space belongs to everyone. Plus, I've been wanting to meet this amazing daughter of yours, Regina." Monica smiled, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. She could already imagine the impact Regina would have on the students, especially Imani. This was more than just defending a school project now. It was about changing perspectives and opening doors. Her phone buzzed again with another message from Regina. "P.S. Should I bring my space suit?" The school auditorium buzzed with excitement on Wednesday morning. Every seat was filled, with local news cameras set up in the back and parents lining the walls. Monica sat in the front row beside Imani, who couldn't stop fidgeting with her toy rocket. "When will she be here?" Imani whispered for the 3rd time. "Any minute now," Monica assured her, smoothing her daughter's collar. Principal McHenry approached the podium, tapping the microphone. "Good morning, everyone. Today we have a very special guest." The side door opened, and Dr. Regina James strode in wearing her official NASA flight suit, patches gleaming under the lights. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. She carried her helmet under one arm, her natural hair crowned with silver streaks that caught the light. Imani grabbed Monica's hand, squeezing tight. "Mom, she looks just like us." Regina took the stage with the easy confidence of someone who had commanded spacecraft. Her smile was warm and genuine as she surveyed the crowd. "Good morning, future astronauts." Her voice filled the room without needing the microphone. "Who here has ever looked up at the stars and wondered what it's like up there?" Hands shot up throughout the auditorium. Even Ms. Whitmore's students, seated together near the middle, raised their arms eagerly. "Well, I'm here to tell you that space isn't just for dreaming about. It's for exploring. And it belongs to all of us." Regina's gaze found Imani in the front row. "Every single one of us." For the next hour, Regina held the audience spellbound. She showed videos of herself floating in zero gravity, conducting experiments on the International Space Station, and training in NASA's Neutral Buoyancy Lab. She explained complex concepts in ways the children could understand, making them laugh with stories about eating floating M&Ms and sleeping in space. "Now, I heard there's a special young scientist here who's been teaching her classmates about Black pioneers in space," Regina said, gesturing to Imani. Would you like to come up here and help me demonstrate how astronauts move in zero gravity? Imani looked at Monica, who nodded encouragingly. The girl walked to the stage, her steps becoming more confident with each stride. Regina helped Imani into a smaller flight jacket she'd brought specially. "This belonged to me when I first started training," she explained, adjusting the sleeves. "Maybe you'll wear one of your own someday." Together, they demonstrated the floating walk astronauts use in space. Imani mimicked Regina's movements perfectly, drawing applause and delighted laughter from the crowd. Mrs. Chen's daughter, Sarah, called out, "Go, Imani!" "You know," Regina addressed the audience, "when I was about Imani's age, someone told me I couldn't be an astronaut either. But here's what I learned." She placed her hands on Imani's shoulders. "Dreams don't have limits unless we put them there." She gestured to Monica in the front row. "Your mom and I work together at NASA. She helps design the rockets that carry astronauts like me into space. Without brilliant engineers like Dr. Robinson, none of us would make it to the stars." Ms. Whitmore shifted uncomfortably in her seat as several parents turned to look at her. Mrs. Tinsley studied her program intently. After the presentation, Regina opened the floor for questions. Hands shot up everywhere, including those of students who had once mocked Imani's aspirations. Regina answered each question with patience and enthusiasm, weaving in stories about other black astronauts and scientists who had helped pave the way. During the meet and greet afterward, a line formed to talk to both Regina and Imani. 3 of Imani's former bullies approached, shuffling their feet. "We're sorry we laughed before," one boy said. "Can you tell us more about the space station?" Imani glanced at her mother, who gave her an encouraging nod. "Sure," Imani said, standing a little taller. "Did you know it orbits Earth 16 times every day?" Local reporters circulated through the crowd, interviewing parents and teachers. Mrs. Chen spoke passionately about the impact the presentation had on her daughter. Even Principal McHenry gave a statement about the school's commitment to fostering all students' dreams. Regina signed autographs, posed for photos, and made sure to spend extra time with any child who seemed shy about approaching her. She signed Imani's toy rocket, "To my future colleague, reach for the stars." That evening, Monica tucked an exhausted but happy Imani into bed. The signed rocket sat proudly on her nightstand next to a framed photo of her with Regina. "Mom," Imani asked sleepily, "Dr. James said she'll write me letters about her training. She said I can ask her questions whenever I want." "That's wonderful, baby." Monica kissed her forehead. "You've made quite an impression on her." "Some kids asked if they could help with my project tomorrow," Imani mumbled, drifting off. "Sarah said we could make a whole space club." Monica sat on the edge of the bed, watching her daughter fall asleep with a smile on her face. Her phone buzzed repeatedly in her pocket, messages from reporters requesting interviews, emails from parents praising the assembly, social media notifications about viral posts from the event. One message caught her eye, a local news headline reading, "NASA astronaut inspires next generation at local school." Below it was a photo of Regina and Imani, both beaming in their flight jackets, reaching toward the stars. Monica sipped her morning coffee, watching the local news feature about yesterday's assembly. On screen, Regina and Imani demonstrated the astronaut walk together, both radiating joy. The anchor's voice carried genuine warmth. In a powerful display of representation and possibility, NASA astronaut Dr. Regina James inspired students at Cedar Grove Elementary. Her phone chimed with text messages from parents she'd never spoken to before. "Thank you for bringing Dr. James to our school. My daughter couldn't stop talking about space all evening. Sarah wants to know if Imani would like to come over this weekend to build model rockets." Monica smiled, but her joy was short-lived when she opened her email. Among the positive messages sat a formal notice from Principal McHenry, requesting an urgent meeting at 8:30 a.m. The school parking lot was half full when Monica arrived. Mrs. Chen waved from her car, hurrying over with a Tupperware container. "My mother made these mooncakes," she said, pressing the container into Monica's hands. She saw the news and said it reminded her of when she first came to America. How important it is for children to see what's possible. Before Monica could respond, Karen Whitmore's voice cut through the morning air. "Well, well, if it isn't our local celebrity." She stood with 3 other PTA mothers, their arms crossed. "I suppose you're proud of the chaos you've caused." Monica held her head high, walking past them into the building. She heard one mother mutter, "Who does she think she is?" The main office was unusually quiet. The secretary avoided eye contact as Monica waited for Principal McHenry. Through the glass partition, she could see heated discussions happening in the teacher's lounge. "Dr. Robinson!" Principal McHenry appeared, gesturing to her office. "Please come in." The principal settled behind her desk, arranging papers with nervous energy. "First, let me congratulate you on yesterday's assembly. Dr. James was impressive." "Thank you," Monica said carefully, noting the tension in McHenry's voice. "However," McHenry continued, "I've received some concerning feedback from certain community members. They feel the event was politically charged." Monica's jaw tightened. "Political? How is inspiring children to pursue science political?" The school board held an emergency meeting this morning. McHenry slid a document across the desk. "They've decided to temporarily suspend all non-essential parent involvement in school activities, pending review." Monica scanned the paper. "This specifically targets me. It suspends my ability to volunteer or organize any events." "It's just temporary," McHenry said weakly. "And there's something else. Ms. Whitmore has requested a transfer to another grade level. The board has approved it, effective immediately." "A transfer?" Monica's voice rose slightly. "Not termination? After what she did?" "Dr. Robinson, please understand my position. Ms. Whitmore has been here 15 years. She has connections." Monica's NASA phone buzzed. Her supervisor's name flashed on screen. "Urgent. Please call ASAP." The day deteriorated further. During her lunch break, Monica learned that someone had complained to NASA about her unprofessional conduct and creating negative publicity. "We support you, Monica," her supervisor said, sounding strained. "But please, be mindful. We're under scrutiny, too." By afternoon, local Facebook groups were buzzing with thinly veiled racist comments about troublemakers and playing the victim. Several parents had pulled their children from Imani's space club. Monica was reviewing documentation of Ms. Whitmore's behavior when she heard the front door open. Imani's footsteps, usually bouncy, dragged across the floor. "Baby? What's wrong?" Imani's face was streaked with tears. "Nobody would sit with me at lunch. Sarah said her mom told her we're causing problems." She hiccuped. "Even Ms. Chen moved me to a different table in art class." Monica pulled her daughter close, feeling her small body shake with sobs. "They said I ruined everything, that I should just be quiet and stop showing off." Anger and heartbreak warred in Monica's chest. She'd fought so hard to give Imani a voice, to show her that dreams had no limits. Now the system was pushing back, trying to force them both into silence. On the kitchen counter, her phone lit up with more messages. Support from some parents, veiled threats from others. The school board's suspension notice. NASA's warning. Each one asked the same implicit question. Was this fight worth the cost? Imani pulled away, wiping her eyes. Maybe I should just tell everyone I don't want to be an astronaut anymore." The words hit Monica like a physical blow. She looked at her daughter, this brilliant, brave girl who had dared to reach for the stars, now shrinking under the weight of other people's prejudice. Monica led Imani to the couch, sitting beside her. The coffee table still held printouts about black astronauts, now tear-stained. Regina's signed photo watched them from the wall, its message about reaching for the stars seeming both defiant and distant. "What should we do, Mom?" Imani's voice was small. Monica stared at the papers spread before them, evidence of both progress and pushback, support and sabotage. The choice loomed: fight harder and risk everything, or withdraw and protect what they had. Either way, something precious would be lost. She held her daughter close, feeling the weight of generations of similar choices pressing down on them both. Late that night, after Imani had finally fallen asleep clutching her toy rocket, Monica and Marcus sat at their kitchen table. Empty tea mugs and scattered papers covered the surface between them. "We could move," Marcus said softly, reaching for Monica's hand. "I could transfer to another office. You could work remotely for NASA. We don't have to keep fighting this battle." Monica stared at the threatening letters they'd received. Running away would teach Imani the wrong lesson: that bullies win, that dreams have limits. "But at what cost?" Marcus's voice cracked. "I heard what they said to her today. I see how this is wearing you down." Monica's phone buzzed again. Another message from a parent, this one supportive. She opened it to find a video link. "Look at this." The clip showed Dr. Mae Jemison, the first black woman in space, speaking on a national morning show. What's happening to young Imani Robinson and her mother, Dr. Monica Robinson, is exactly why we still need to fight for equality in education and STEM fields. This bright young girl was told to aim lower, simply because of who she is. This is unacceptable. Marcus leaned in closer as Monica scrolled through more notifications. The story had exploded overnight. Civil rights groups were sharing it. Black scientists and educators were speaking out. Imani Dreams was trending. "This isn't just about us anymore," Monica said. "Look at these messages from other parents whose children faced similar discrimination. We're not alone." Her phone rang. An unknown number. Monica answered cautiously. "Dr. Robinson? This is Benjamin Taylor from the Civil Rights Legal Defense Fund. We've been following your story, and we'd like to help." Monica put the phone on speaker. For the next hour, she and Marcus listened as the attorney outlined their options. The school district's actions, the targeted suspension, protecting Ms. Whitmore, the pattern of discrimination. "We can build a strong case." After hanging up, Monica pulled up more messages. Current and former black NASA astronauts had created a video message for Imani. Local news vans were parked near the school. National outlets were requesting interviews. "The spotlight's on them now," Monica said. "All those years of subtle racism, of telling our children to dream smaller. It's finally being exposed." Marcus rubbed his tired eyes. "You're right. But promise me something. Promise me we'll protect Imani through this. She needs to know she's more than a symbol." "Always," Monica whispered, squeezing his hand. "That's why we have to stay and fight. So she knows her worth isn't determined by people like Karen Whitmore." The next morning, Monica's inbox was flooded. A producer from Good Morning America wanted to feature Imani's story. 3 more civil rights organizations had reached out. The NASA Black Employee Resource Group pledged their full support. At work, Monica's colleagues rallied around her. Her supervisor called to apologize for the earlier warning. "The administration supports you fully, Dr. Robinson. We stand for inclusion and inspiration. That's literally our mission." News vans lined the street outside Cedar Grove Elementary. Parents stopped Monica in the parking lot, sharing their own stories of discrimination at the school. A group of teachers secretly passed her a letter expressing their support and detailing other incidents involving Ms. Whitmore. By Wednesday, the pressure was mounting. The school board announced an emergency meeting for Friday evening. Monica spent her lunch breaks organizing evidence, screenshots of racist comments from parents, documentation of Ms. Whitmore's pattern of behavior, statistics showing the district's lack of diversity in hiring and advancement. The civil rights attorney helped her prepare a statement. "Keep it focused on the systemic issues," he advised. "This isn't just about one teacher or one incident. It's about changing the culture." Thursday night, Monica sat with Imani, showing her some of the supportive messages from astronauts and scientists. "All these people believe in you, baby. They're standing with us." "Really?" Imani traced the NASA patch Dr. James had given her. "Even though some people are still mean?" "Especially then," Monica said, "because they know what it's like. They faced people who told them to dream smaller, and they proved those people wrong." Marcus brought them hot chocolate, sitting close. "Whatever happens tomorrow, we face it as a family." Monica stayed up late, refining her statement for the board meeting. She included quotes from other parents, statistics about representation in STEM fields, and specific recommendations for change. The evidence was overwhelming. The system's failures couldn't be ignored any longer. As she practiced her speech, Monica thought about all the children like Imani, bright stars dimmed by prejudice and low expectations. The time for quiet acceptance was over. Tomorrow, she would speak not just for her daughter, but for all of them. Her phone lit up with one last message before bed. A photo from Dr. James. It showed her floating in the International Space Station, Earth glowing behind her. The caption read, "The view is worth the climb. Keep reaching, Imani." Monica printed the photo to show Imani in the morning. The board meeting was just hours away, but for the first time in weeks, she felt truly ready. The truth was on their side, and now the whole world was watching. The Cedar Grove Elementary School auditorium buzzed with tension. Every seat was filled, with people standing along the walls and spilling into the hallway. News cameras lined the back wall, their red lights blinking in the dim room. Monica sat in the front row between Marcus and their attorney, her hands steady as she reviewed her notes one last time. School board members filed in, taking their places at the long table on stage. The board president, Dr. Harris, tapped his microphone. "This emergency session will come to order." Monica scanned the crowd. "Mrs. E. Hayes." Whitmore sat with her own lawyer, her usual confident smirk replaced by tight-lipped worry. Principal McHenry kept her eyes down, shuffling papers. Several rows back, Monica spotted friendly faces, parents and teachers who had secretly supported her, waiting for this moment. "First speaker, Dr. Monica Robinson," Dr. Harris announced. Monica stood, smoothing her NASA blazer. The room fell silent as she approached the podium. Camera shutters clicked rapidly. "My daughter Imani dreams of being an astronaut," she began, her voice clear and strong. "But in this school, she was taught to dream smaller, not because of her abilities, but because of her race." She methodically presented her evidence. Screenshots of racist comments from the school's parent Facebook group. Email threads showing the principal dismissing complaints about discrimination. Statistics revealing 0 teachers of color hired in the past decade. "Ms. Whitmore's mockery of my daughter wasn't an isolated incident," Monica continued. "It was part of a pattern." She played audio recordings from teachers who had witnessed similar incidents. The crowd murmured as Ms. Whitmore's voice filled the room, making disparaging remarks about black students. And when confronted, Monica said, the response was to silence those who spoke up, to protect the perpetrators rather than the children being harmed. She detailed the retaliation, her volunteer suspension, the threatening letters, the attempts to discredit her NASA career. But what you didn't know was that every step of discrimination was being documented. Every act of retaliation created more evidence of systemic racism in this school. Monica's voice softened as she described Imani's pain. My 8-year-old daughter asked me if people like her are really allowed to go to space. Think about that. In 2024, we're still teaching Black children to limit their dreams. Other parents began standing up, requesting to speak. Sarah Chen, an Asian American mother, described how her son was mocked for his accent. James Washington, a Black father, revealed his daughter was consistently given lower grades than white students for identical work. Even white parents joined in. "My daughter came home crying after Ms. Whitmore made fun of her friend Imani," said Rebecca Turner, her voice shaking. "When I complained, I was told to mind my own business." This toxic culture affects all our children. The evidence kept mounting. Teachers anonymously submitted years of incidents they'd witnessed. A former administrative assistant provided emails showing Principal McHenry deliberately burying discrimination complaints. Ms. Whitmore's lawyer attempted damage control, claiming his client's comments were taken out of context. But the audio recordings spoke for themselves. The principal sat silent, her face ashen as more cover-ups came to light. 2 hours into the meeting, Dr. Harris called a brief recess. The board members huddled in intense discussion while the crowd waited anxiously. Monica felt Marcus squeeze her hand. Around them, parents and teachers whispered encouragement. When the board returned, Dr. Harris looked grave. "Based on the overwhelming evidence presented tonight, this board has reached several immediate decisions." The room held its breath. First, Ms. Karen Whitmore's employment is terminated, effective immediately. Furthermore, we will recommend her teaching license be revoked by the State Board of Education. Gasps and scattered applause filled the room. Ms. Whitmore's face reddened as she gathered her things and hurried out. Second, we accept Principal McHenry's resignation, also effective immediately. The principal nodded stiffly, already clearing her desk items into a box. Additionally, Dr. Harris continued, this board recognizes the need for systemic change. We are implementing mandatory anti-racism training for all staff. We will create a diversity and inclusion task force with parent and teacher representation. Our hiring practices will be thoroughly reviewed and reformed. He looked directly at Monica. Dr. Robinson, we owe you and Imani an apology. Your courage in speaking out has forced us to confront long-ignored problems in our school system. We thank you for holding us accountable. The crowd erupted in applause. Parents and teachers surrounded Monica, many with tears in their eyes. Reporters pressed forward, seeking comments about the victory. But Monica's thoughts were on Imani, waiting at home with her grandmother. Tonight, she would tell her daughter that standing up for justice matters, that speaking truth to power can create real change, that her dreams have no limits. Through the crowd, Monica saw Sarah Chen hugging her son. James Washington was shaking hands with Rebecca Turner. Small moments of connection and healing, the first steps toward real transformation in their community. The cameras kept rolling as the board detailed more planned reforms. But the biggest change had already happened. The wall of silence was broken. The truth was finally out in the open, where it could no longer be ignored or denied. A month after the school board meeting, Cedar Grove Elementary was transformed. Fresh paint brightened the halls, and new bulletin boards showcased diverse scientists, artists, and leaders. Students' artwork celebrating Black History Month covered the walls, with Imani's Space Pioneer project taking center stage. The auditorium filled again, but this time with celebration rather than tension. Colorful balloons and a "Reach for the Stars" banner decorated the stage. Teachers chatted warmly with parents, including several new staff members hired as part of the district's diversity initiative. Imani fidgeted in her chair, wearing her favorite NASA t-shirt and clutching note cards. Monica straightened her daughter's collar, remembering how different things had felt just weeks ago in this same room. You ready, baby? Monica whispered. Imani nodded, her eyes bright with excitement rather than tears. Around them, familiar faces offered encouraging smiles. Sarah Chen's son waved from 2 rows back. Rebecca Turner's daughter gave Imani a thumbs up. The new principal, Dr. Janelle Williams, approached the podium. As the first black woman to lead Cedar Grove Elementary, her appointment marked a visible sign of change. Today, we celebrate courage, Dr. Williams began. The courage to dream big, to speak up, and to create positive change. Please welcome Imani Robinson. Applause filled the room as Imani walked to the podium. She needed the step stool they'd placed there, but her voice rang out clear and strong. When I first said I wanted to be an astronaut, some people laughed, Imani said. They told me to dream smaller, but my mom taught me that no dream is too big. She gestured to the display of black astronauts behind her. Did you know that Dr. Mae Jemison was the first black woman in space? She said, never be limited by other people's limited imagination. Now I understand what that means. Monica felt tears welling up as Imani continued. My mom works at NASA. She helps build rockets that will take people to the moon. When I was scared, she showed me that people who look like me belong in space too. The audience listened intently as Imani described her research project. I learned about Robert Lawrence, the first black astronaut, and Ronald McNair, who loved science like me, and all the black scientists and engineers who helped build NASA. She smiled at her classmates. Now, when we play astronauts at recess, everyone wants to be Mae Jemison or Bernard Harris. We know that space is for everybody. Dr. Williams returned to the podium, holding a plaque. Imani's courage inspired changes that will help all our students reach their potential. And we're not the only ones who noticed. She introduced Dr. Regina James, who had returned for the celebration. The NASA astronaut stepped forward with a special announcement. The Robinson family's story touched many hearts at NASA, Dr. James said. We're proud to announce that Dr. Monica Robinson has been promoted to Deputy Director of Engineering for the Artemis program. She'll be helping lead our return to the moon. The crowd erupted in applause. Monica hugged Imani tight, remembering all the late nights and hard choices that led to this moment. Dr. James continued, and we have something special for Imani. She presented a NASA patch signed by the current crew of black astronauts. Keep reaching for the stars, young scientist. We'll be saving a seat for you on the spacecraft. The celebration continued with the unveiling of new school initiatives. Anti-racism training was now mandatory for all staff. A diverse parent-teacher committee would oversee hiring and curriculum decisions. The library had new books reflecting different cultures and experiences. Most touching were the students themselves. Children who once laughed at Imani now asked her space questions eagerly. The hallways rang with chatter about science projects and future careers, dreams unlimited by prejudice. Later that evening, Monica helped Imani get ready for bed. They stood together at her bedroom window, gazing at the stars twinkling against the dark sky. Look, Mom, Imani pointed. That bright one is Venus, and over there is the Big Dipper. Monica smiled, remembering her own childhood fascination with the cosmos. But unlike her daughter, she'd had to hide her passion, afraid of ridicule. Now Imani could dream openly, supported by a community that finally recognized her worth. They turned to Imani's wall, where photos of black astronauts surrounded her desk. Together, they pinned the signed NASA patch in the center. It's perfect, Imani said, tracing the embroidered edges with her finger. She climbed into bed, still wearing her NASA shirt. Mom, do you think the kids at school really believe in me now? They do, baby, Monica assured her, tucking the covers around her daughter. But more importantly, you believe in yourself. Imani yawned, her eyes growing heavy. Next stop. The stars, she whispered, snuggling into her pillow. Monica kissed her forehead, heart full of pride and hope. Through the window, Venus shone steadily. No longer a distant dream, but a beacon of possibility. The night sky stretched endless and welcoming above their home, just as it should be. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please share it with your friends and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.